यस,
Yeah,
वो
we're live.
लाइव।
Yeah,
आप इसको फुल स्क्रीन करना चाहती हैं? फुल
ठीक है.
स्क्रीन।
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So today I'm here to talk about PT. Last time when I came online, we talked about the new IELTS thing that is happening um, and is causing stress to a lot of people. That is that online. That is that IELTS has been shifted to computer-based IELTS. The paper-based IELTS is over. We have a lot of more queries about it, and we have much more discussions related to that. But today I wanted to talk about another important thing, and that is the fact that PTE is also a substitute for IELTS in some of the cases, and it is recommended for a lot of students. Sometimes the university requirements are such that the people have to do IELTS, and sometimes they choose IELTS. Sometimes the university requirements are such that they have to go for a PTE, or sometimes they prefer doing PTE over IELTS. Now, there are some core differences between the two kinds of PTE. Pardon if I, sometimes call it IELTS instead of PTE. So, what happens is that PTE is, of course, of two kinds, just as IELTS is. Like, just as IELTS is, generally in broader terms divided into two types, that is IELTS Academic and IELTS General. So is PTE. So there are two types of PTEs that we have. PTE tests. Both are for, of course, for testing English proficiency of the candidate, but they are different as well. They're named as PT Core and PT Academic. And of course, then they have differences, just as IELTS General or IELTS Academic has. So let's talk about these two types of PTE, PT Academic and PTE Core. So first of all, the requirement criteria is what you decide whether to do PT Core or PT Academic. PT academics, as the name suggests, is basically for the people who have to apply for, higher education. And of course, in some of the cases, it is required it is required as an aptitude test or English proficiency test while you are being some professional, while profession specific. On the other hand, when it comes to PGE core, it is required when you are applying for immigration and when you are applying for a job in a foreign country. Now, even before that, some of you might have a question that what is then the difference between PTE and IELTS? So, the of course, the marking criteria is different. Your requirement determines whether to do IELTS or whether to do PTE. But if I specifically talk about the modules, so the modules are same as there are four modules in IELTS, so are four modules in PTE. But we see that in IELTS, the four modules, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, they are they're quite exclusive. They are independent, and your score is also so whatever you get in one module has nothing to do with what you get in the other module. You might be really good at one of the modules, but not really good at the others. So that's what IELTS is. Like all the modules are independent of the other modules, and the modules are quite exclusive. When it comes to PTE, the modules are overlapping. So, there are question types in which you are judged not just on the basis of speaking, but on the basis of reading as well, or vice versa. Similarly, there are questions in which you are judged for listening as well as writing. So the marking criteria or the modules, I would say, are not independent. They are overlapped, they are interlinked, and you have to work on all four of them, of course, in the same manner as you would do in IELTS. But you have to keep in mind the scoring criteria, like how many questions are there which have, which contains marks for two of the modules. For example, there is one question in PTE that is in the listening, in the listening module of PTE, there is summarized spoken text. So there is a text that you listen and then you have to write it and, of course, summarize it. So what happens is that since you're listening and then you are writing, then you are summarizing it. So it will contain marks for both the modules, listening as well as writing. Now, if you are losing marks in this one, for example, because of incorrect spellings, so you would not only be losing marks in your writing module, but in your listening module as well. So when the overall mark sheet comes, so you get to see that you lost marks in that specific question, and it impacted not just your listening module but your writing module as well. So this is like the very evident difference between when it comes to preparation, when it comes to the marking criteria, when it comes to the modules. This is a very evident difference between IELTS and PTE, that in IELTS, I repeat, the modules are quite independent of each other. um, whatever you're getting in one module, it is exclusively for that module only. That is why we see that sometimes when we look at the results, we see that students who have performed really well in one of the module might not have really good score in the other module, because they're independent. They've got nothing to do with each other. While in PTE, we get to see that when, because the modules are overlapping, the question type is overlapping. So, one type of question will be marked, in two of the modules. So that's the basic difference between IELTS and PT. Of course, the marking criteria is different. The requirement by universities and for immigration purposes, that is also different in both of these. So coming back to the concept of PTE and what's the difference between PTE core and PTE academics, I would just be, I would also be okay with the questions. If you have any queries, I am open to that. I would respond to all the queries that you might have. Okay, so just as I said, some of the things already, that how is, so we have one of the comment that how is PTE test scored. So it's scored basically on the scale of 10 to 90, and because it is AI based, this is, I'm saying it for the first time, but a lot of you might already know that this is an AI based test, where you have to learn a certain criteria that the AI has set and the AI tests it. Although in the recent past we've seen that a lot of modifications have been made into PTE, the scoring. And how you attempt and how the AI accepts it. So for that reason, a lot of improvements, improvisations have to be made while preparing for PTE. Um, so otherwise, it's just like that. It is checked by AI, and so it has this criteria where, so you're basically tested on all the four modules: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Everything is tested in it, and it's on the scale of 10 to 90. You get maximum 90, and in some of the cases we have seen that attaining score in PT has been easier than attaining score in IELTS for certain reasons. um, I have had students who learned a certain, who followed certain techniques and, tips and techniques, and they managed to score really, really well in PTE, although they did not really have a good command over the language. Okay, so all right. Okay, so since we were talking about PTE core and PTE academic, I have a question about how PTE core and PTE academic have what's the difference in their modules. So there isn't a lot of difference. Um, the modules are the same: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So it starts off with speaking, and then comes writing, and then comes reading, and then comes listening. So the modules are the same and they go in this order, but it's just that the language to be used in PT core can be the everyday language, while when it comes to academic, specific academic language has